One Monday morning, while sitting in a friend's office, the writer was in reverie and called for a reporter to take down what he was about to say. The reporter took his seat and gave forth what Albro called the following beautiful portraiture of coming time on earth. It will be seen that the reverist is reading from a paper, the date to which is A.D. 3869, and the article which he is reading is copied from another paper found in a bottle floating on the ocean, the date which is A.D. 2869. It is the poetry of prophecy. At least, so said the paper it appeared in. To a certain few who are blind to the facts of progress, who do not see that the world moves with rapidity never equaled since creation, it will be strange, and yet 'tis true. The article is evidently a part of a letter from one friend to another. A portion of silk on which it was printed had been so defaced by the ravages of time that it was exceedingly difficult to decipher the contents. And therefore we are compelled to omit the commencement of the letter and can only present a portion of its conclusion. We present our readers this noon with the rich relic of antiquity, being a part of its contents of news journal printed on the silk in olden time. Its date is February 8th, A.D. 2869. Exactly 1,000 years ago, this being August 5th, A.D. 3869. We make the following extracts for the purpose of showing our 6 million of readers the wonderful contrast between the present condition of the human race and the astonishing barbarism, which, by the way, was at the time 2869, regarded as the very essence of civilization and social perfection of that dark age. Our readers will notice that the tone of pride in which the writer speaks, when contrasting the age in which he lived with the uncouth barbarism in 18th and 19th centuries. But here's the article it speaks of for itself. Ah, my lovely Zolivia, would that I could spare the time to fly on the wings of love, that I might drink in the soul foods ever gushing from the snowy fountain of thy gentle spirit. But alas, it cannot be. Zolivia, my love, my lovely one, the soul of thy Dalvin yearns to be free from the thraldom to which it has so long been subjugated. And he longs to sleep, or, as the savages of the 19th century used in their ignorance to express it, die. In the dark ages, those history I have lately been reading, my Zolivia, men lived to an astonishing age. Because they were so utterly ignorant of the laws of life and development, they plodded on to 60, 70, and in rare cases even 100 years, ere they completed their outer spiritual growth, which is essential to passage over the river to the first form of the second life. Their ignorance, my lovebird, was such that diseases and frightful disorders without number afflicted them, and healthy human cranium was scarcely ever seen, and consequently a perfect human pleasure seldom, if ever, enjoyed or experienced. And, as a further consequence of their darkened state, they were but subject to mental disorders of the most terrible kind, among which, was it learned from the perusal of their history, were two of peculiarly distressing nature. These were first a strange fatuity, which caused them to imagine untold perfections residing in a kind of earth, or lustrous metal, which they called gold, the same, Zolivia, with which the worship temples of our cities are built. This strange disease, which so sadly afflicted the barbarians of the 19th century, afflicted their eyes in such a manner that nothing was regarded as beautiful unless it had a yellow hue. And strange as it may seem to you, no man had influence on or was considered even respectable unless he possessed a large amount of the small metals made upon this yellow earth, together with large bundles of sheets of paper adorned with pictures, and which they were all called banknotes. These pictures, instead of adorning the walls of their dwellings, were kept securely locked in ponderous iron trunks called safes. The second disease to which these poor creatures were subjected, and which affected the nervous system in most singular manner, was one known as political ambition. After a man had, by the exercise of what then known as meanness, but has long since become extinct in the human breast, After he had accumulated a large bundle of these pictures to which I have alluded, the back part of his brain became inflamed, and then the strangest vagaries took possession of his mind, and he would place himself in a position where all people could see him, and beg of them to lay him in a bed made in the small bits of paper called ballots, and attempt to carry them thereon into a place more or less elevated called office. There was generally treated as a lunatic, and became the glided slave of very men who placed him there. The disease sometimes lasted for a very long time, indeed very frequently for the whole life, but was sometimes cured by a saline draughts, or a bath or two in a river whose waters were salt. The people would occasionally place the patient in a wherry or boat, and then row them upstream where the bath was taken, and convalescence generally followed. Let us return. I stated I was weary, my Olivia, but I know that I shall soon pass through the transition, my lovely one, and in my new form will often visit thee, and avail myself my privilege of sometimes bear thee with me in the halls of the temples of the spirit realms of Jupiter and Saturn. It is 30 years, Olivia, since my birth on earth, and I am growing old. I have recently taken a retrospective glance down the dim vista of the past, and have been comparing our present condition with the people of the dark ages of the 19th century, as I have told thee. They had a species of animal called the horse, in those early times, which has long since become extinct. They also had machines called locomotives, which, considering their ignorance of mechanics, were very ingeniously constructed. They were impelled by vapor, and roared and rumbled over the surface of the earth at a rate of 50 miles an hour. Rather slow speed for these days of aerial navigation. Then it took more than a week to cross the sea, from the European to the American continent, a journey which we now make in 40 hours. They also transmitted thought through metallic wires in those days, Olivia, which they call telegraphs. It is amusing and instructive to think that imperfections of everything in those days, our rapid means of personal transit and thought transmission in the present year, 2869, and the snail-like paces of 1869. At that early date, men slew animals called oxen, sheep, and swine for food. Statues and pictures of the singular-looking breast may be occasionally in the antique museums. There is but little room for wonder on the surprise that the human soul failed to develop its powers under the influence of such horrible food. For when the aged, Olivia, realize the truth, and know that the soul and body, fed on aromas distilled and extracted from the blood and the gore of slaughtered brutes, cannot reap the fruits of intellect and soul of man, was intended to from the glowing realms of love and wisdom beyond the azure sky,